April 27th, 1522, Picaca, 2 miles north of Milan. 8,000 Spanish Tercio infantry faced 25,000 French, 12,000 of them gendarmes, the heaviest cavalry Europe has ever fielded. The French king, Francois I, needs Milan. The Spanish Emperor Charles V will not yield it. What happens in the next 4 hours reshapes battlefield doctrine for a century. This is not legend. This is documented slaughter. If you value documented Renaissance military history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Relación de la Batalla de la Bicoca, held in the Archivo General de Simancas, Valladolid, Estado, Legajo, 1271, and Pietro Martire d'Anguiera's Opus Epistolarum, Letter 798, dated May 3, 1522, written 5 days after. The battle to Cardinal Bernardo Carvajal. These are primary eyewitness accounts from the imperial secretary and the battlefield chaplain, not secondary compilations. Now, back to the information. Per man. The contract expires May 10th. It is April 27th. 13 days remain. The Swiss will not renew unless they fight now. Lautrec argues for delay. Montmorency overrules him. The French move, with earth, forming a continuous 5-foot parapet. Behind the parapet, Tercio arquebusiers stand 3 ranks deep. Behind them, pike blocks anchor the center and flanks. In front of the embankment, Colonna digs a shallow ditch, 2 feet deep, 30 yards wide, studded with caltrops. Spanish engineers place 19 bronze cannon along the embankment, 8-pounders and demi-culverins. Firing positions offer overlapping fields. Colonna positions his Tercio blocks to funnel any assault into kill zones. Spanish Tercio doctrine since 1505 has integrated shot and pike into a single tactical organism. The French still treat arquebus fire as skirmishing. They will learn. Each gendarme weighs 220 pounds with armor. Each warhorse stands 16 hands and weighs 1,300 pounds. A gendarme at full gallop delivers 1,800 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. 20 men abreast, 600 ranks deep. The earth shakes when they move. Behind the gendarmes, the Swiss squares wait. 10,000 halberdiers and pikemen in formations, 40 files wide and 250 ranks deep. The Swiss have not lost a pitched battle since 1478. They believe they will win today. Montmorency gives the order. The gendarmes advance. The French center collapses inward as men and horses pile into craters. The charge fragments 150 yards. Spanish arquebusiers fire by rank. Front rank kneels, second rank stands, third rank reloads. Each musket ball weighs 2 ounces. At 150 yards, it punches through plate. The French reach the ditch. Men in full plate cannot rise quickly. Spanish arquebusiers fire point blank into the ditch. 2-ounce balls at 50 yards penetrate visors, gorgets, cuirass joints. Blood pools in the ditch. The French cannot cross. The Swiss, seeing the gendarmes' stalled advance. Men slip. Formations compress. Spanish cannon switch to grape shot. Cloth bags filled with 1-inch iron balls, 40 per bag. At 200 yards, grape shot spreads in a cone 60 feet wide. The first volley cuts down 200 Swiss in the front 3 ranks. The Swiss do not stop. They reach the ditch. Halberds swing. Spanish pikemen meet them at the embankment crest. 18-foot ash pikes against 15-foot Swiss pikes. The difference is 3 feet of reach and the high ground. They fire into the Swiss at 10 feet. The Swiss cannot break the line. Spanish Tercio blocks execute a lateral pivot. Each man steps left, turns 90 degrees, and presents pike, without breaking formation. The Gascons face a new pike wall and die. The disparity is 17-1. Francois I abandons Milan. Lautrec withdraws to French territory. The Swiss pike square, unbeaten for 44 years, has been shattered by combined shot and pike operating from prepared ground. If you value documented battlefield analysis like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Crónica del Emperador Carlos V by Alonso de Santa Cruz, manuscript Real Biblioteca del Monasterio de San Lorenzo de El Escorial, signatura on I6, compiled between 1550 and 1552 from Imperial Campaign Dispatches, and Martín García Cereceda's Tratado de las Campañas y otros acontecimientos de los ejércitos del Emperador Carlos V, Sociedad de Bibliófilos Españoles, Madrid, 1873. Cereceda fought in all 5 of these battles, and kept a campaign journal with casualty counts and tactical notes. Now back to the information. This time he brings 30,000 men and besieges the imperial garrison at Pavia. Charles V sends Fernando Davalos, Marquis of Pescara, with 8,000 Tercio infantry and 5,000 Spanish and German cavalry. Pavia sits on the Ticino River. The city walls run 2 miles in circumference. Francois camps north of the city in the Parco Visconteo, a walled hunting preserve 3 miles square. Stone walls, 12 feet high, enclose the park on 3 sides. The Ticino forms the 4th side. Francois feels secure. By dawn, 3 Tercio blocks, 2,400 men total, stand 500 yards from Francois' camp. The French do not see them until the Spanish fire. The Tercio forms a hollow square. Pike walls on all 4 sides, arquebusiers inside. French cavalry cannot break pike. Spanish shot kills horses. The French circle the square looking for weakness. Spanish Tercio doctrine rotates fresh pike to any face under pressure. The French find no opening. Pike against pike. The Swiss push hard. Spanish Tercio blocks execute a tactical feint. The front 2 ranks give ground, the 3rd rank holds, and the 2nd rank wheels inward, trapping Swiss pikemen in a U-shaped kill pocket. Spanish arquebusiers fire into the pocket from 3 sides. The Swiss break. Francois' horse is killed under him. He fights on foot. His visor is torn off by a halberd blow. A Tercio soldier named Juan de Urbieta presses a dagger to Francois' throat and demands surrender. The King of France surrenders to a Spanish foot soldier. The battle lasts 4 hours. French casualties, 8,000 dead, including Guillaume Gouffier de Bonnivet, Marshal of France, Jacques de la Palisse, Grand Master, and Anne de Montmorency, captured. Spanish casualties, 500 dead. Francois Thermoyer is imprisoned in Madrid for 1 year. He cedes Burgundy and Milan to Charles V in the Treaty of Madrid, signed January 14, 1526. Spain controls Italy. This time his marshal, Odet de Foix, Vicomte de Lautrec, brings 35,000 men to besiege Naples. The siege lasts 11 months. Plague and starvation kill 18,000 French soldiers. Lautrec dies of fever on August 15, 1528. Command falls to the Prince of Orange, Philibert de Chalon. He retreats north with 12,000 survivors. Antonio de Leyva, imperial commander in Lombardy, intercepts them at Landriano, 12 miles southeast of Milan. Leyva has 6,000 Tercio infantry and 3,000 Spanish cavalry. The French outnumber him 2 to 1. The ground is flat, river plain, no cover. Leyva deploys his Tercio in 4 blocks, checkerboard formation, with cavalry on the flanks. Leyva's Tercio blocks do not move. At 300 yards, Spanish arquebusiers fire by rotation. The French column's front ranks fall. The column compresses. At 100 yards, Spanish cannon fire canister shot. Tin cans filled with musket balls. The French column disintegrates. The Tercio blocks advance. Spanish pike engages French infantry. The French break after 40 minutes. Spanish cavalry pursues for 6 miles. French casualties, 4,000 dead, 3,000 captured. Spanish casualties, 300 dead. The Prince of Orange escapes, but his army is destroyed. Charles V and Francois I sign the Peace of Cambrai on August 3, 1529. Francois permanently renounces Italian claims. Charles V faces the Protestant Schmalkaldic League, led by Johann Friedrich I, Elector of Saxony. Friedrich's army, 12,000 German landsknechts and 4,000 cavalry, camps on the north bank of the Elbe River near Mühlberg, 70 miles southwest of Berlin. Charles brings 15,000 men, 7,000 Spanish Tercio infantry, 5,000 Spanish and Italian cavalry, 3,000 German Catholic infantry. He also brings his court painter Titian to document the battle. By dawn, the entire imperial army stands on the north bank, 1 mile east of Friedrich's camp. Friedrich wakes to Spanish Tercio blocks deployed for battle. Spanish Tercio pike engages. German pike matches Spanish length, 18 feet. But the Tercio holds cohesion better. Spanish pike walls do not bend. The landsknechts try to wheel their formation to face the Tercio advance. A Tercio block executing a wheeling maneuver remains locked. Every file rotates around a central pivot point without breaking step. Landsknechts lack this training. Their formation breaks apart. Spanish Tercio pike cuts through the disordered ranks. The battle lasts 90 minutes. Protestant casualties, 2,000 dead, 5,000 captured, including Johann Friedrich II. Imperial casualties, 50 dead. Charles V consolidates control of Germany. Titian paints Charles on horseback. The painting hangs in the Prado, Madrid. The war ends with the Interim of Augsburg, signed June 30th, 1548. The battlefield returns to Italy. France backs Siena in its rebellion against Spanish-controlled Florence. The French send Piero Strozzi, a Florentine exile, with 13,000 men to support Siena. Charles Philippe sends Gian Giacomo Medici, Marquis of Marignano, with 12,000 men, 8,000 Spanish Tercio infantry, 4,000 cavalry. The armies meet at Marciano, 30 miles southeast of Florence. His center, 6,000 French infantry. His flanks, Italian mercenaries. His plan, draw the Spanish Tercio uphill into prepared defenses. Medici refuses the bait. He moves his Tercio blocks laterally, 3 miles east, circling Strozzi's position. Strozzi must either abandon the ridge or let the Spanish bypass him. He descends. The Tercio blocks halt on flat ground. Strozzi charges. Pike meets pike. The lines lock. Neither side gives ground. Medici orders his cavalry to circle wide, 2 miles, and strikes Strozzi's supply train 3 miles behind the French line. Spanish cavalry burns the supply wagons. Smoke rises. Strozzi's men see it. Panic spreads. Strozzi tries to stabilize the line. Too late. Spanish Tercio blocks advance in unison. The French infantry breaks. Spanish pike pursues. French casualties: 4,000 dead, 2,000 captured. Spanish casualties: 600 dead. Siena surrenders to Florence on April 17, 1555. Florence remains under Spanish control until 1737. Emmanuel Philibert, Duke of Savoy, commands 60,000 men. 18,000 Spanish Tercio infantry, 12,000 Spanish and Flemish cavalry, 30,000 German and Italian infantry. France sends Anne de Montmorency, the same Montmorency defeated at Bicocca and captured at Pavia, now 74 years old, with 26,000 men to relieve the besieged fortress of Saint-Quentin. Montmorency attempts to cross the Somme River at Saint-Quentin to reinforce the garrison. The river is 80 feet wide, 5 feet deep. A single stone bridge, 12 feet wide, offers the only crossing. Spanish Tercio blocks hold the south bank. Montmorency sends his vanguard, 4,000 French gendarmes, to force the bridge. 4,000 gendarmes cross in 1 hour, forming on the south bank. Spanish Tercio blocks surround them. 8,000 Tercio infantry, pike walls on all sides. Spanish arquebusiers fire into the French cavalry at point-blank range. The gendarmes cannot charge through pike. They cannot retreat. The bridge is jammed with French infantry still crossing. The Spanish Tercio blocks compress inward, reducing the kill zone by 20 yards every 5 minutes. French gendarmes die in a shrinking circle. French infantry, trapped between the river and Spanish pike, cannot maneuver. Spanish arquebusiers fire from elevated positions on the riverbank. The French formation collapses. The Treaty of Cateau Cambrésis, signed April 3, 1559, cedes Spanish dominance in Italy and Flanders. Spain will hold these territories for 150 years. 3,000 men divided into 12 companies, each company 250 men, 100 pike, 100 arquebus, 50 halberd. The Tercio deploys in 3 blocks: vanguard, center, rear. Each block operates independently but coordinates with the others. Spanish Tercio training emphasizes 5 drills: pike advance in locked formation, pike defense against cavalry, pike rotation to face new threats, musket fire by rank rotation, and transition from march to battle formation in under 2 minutes. Spanish Tercio infantry trains year-round, unlike French feudal levies, which muster seasonally. Ammunition is interchangeable. French armies use pikes ranging from 15 to 22 feet, and arquebuses from 60 to 80 caliber. Ammunition supply breaks down. Formations lose cohesion when weapons vary. Spanish supply trains travel with mobile ovens, wood-framed carts carrying clay baking chambers. Bread bakes while the Tercio marches. French armies rely on local requisition, which alienates occupied populations and collapses when regions are exhausted. Spanish Tercios carry 2 weeks of hardtack, twice-baked bread that lasts months, allowing sustained campaigns. Spanish Tercio soldiers receive 4 escudos per month, paid on the first of each month by imperial paymasters who travel with the army. French soldiers are paid irregularly and often in debased coinage. Spanish Tercio infantry mutinies are rare, 3 recorded between 1520 and 1560. And always over delayed pay, never over conditions. French armies experience mass desertion when pay fails. At Saint-Quentin, French records note 2,000 desertions in the week before battle. Spanish Tercio blocks execute complex maneuvers, lateral shifts, oblique advances, defensive squares, without breaking formation, because every captain knows the drill and every soldier trusts his captain. French formations require constant supervision and break when command is disrupted. Seconds. Tercio block flanked by enemy infantry pivots 90 degrees without losing cohesion. Tercio block advancing uphill reduces frontage to maintain pike density. French armies lack standardized drills. Landsknecht pike blocks, though formidable, train only for frontal assault. When Spanish Tercio blocks execute lateral maneuvers at Mühlberg, the Landsknechts cannot respond. Between 1520 and 1600, Spanish Tercio infantry fights in 73 major engagements. Spain wins 68. The 5 losses occur when Tercio blocks are outnumbered 5 to 1 or more, or when fighting in a heavily wooded terrain where pike formations cannot deploy. On open ground, at numerical parity, the Tercio does not lose. Maurice reduces infantry unit size from 3,000 to 550 men, increases musket to pike ratio from 1:1 to 2:1, and introduces countermarch firing. 10 ranks of musketeers rotating fire without pausing to reload. Dutch armies defeat Spanish Tercio blocks at Nieuwpoort in 1600 and at the Battle of the Downs in 1639. The Swedish king Gustavus Adolphus adopts Maurice's reforms and adds mobile artillery. Swedish infantry destroys Spanish Tercio blocks at Breitenfeld in 1631. By 1640, the Tercio is obsolete. The French lose 43,000 soldiers in these 6 battles. Spain loses 3,000. The Tercio does not defeat enemies through individual valor. It defeats them through system, combined arms, standardized equipment, year-round training, reliable pay, field-tested doctrine, and adaptive command. The Italian Wars end in Spanish victory because France cannot match Tercio effectiveness. The 80 Years' War in the Netherlands lasts 8 decades because Dutch armies cannot defeat Spanish Tercio blocks until Maurice's reforms mature. The 30 Years' War becomes a pan-European conflict because only Swedish and Dutch forces can challenge Spanish Tercio infantry, and then only after adopting new doctrines. Philip II spends 60 million ducats on military wages between 1556 and 1598, half the Spanish crown's total revenue. Tercio infantry costs 4 escudos per man per month. A tercio block of 3,000 men costs 12,000 escudos monthly. Spain maintains 30 tercio blocks in Italy, Flanders, and Germany simultaneously, costing 360,000 escudos per month, 4,320,000 escudos per year. The silver mines of Potosi, discovered 1545, produce 8 million ducats per year at peak output. Half goes to pay tercio wages. Spain's empire is built on silver and sustained by tercio steel. His only defeat, at Moncontour in 1569, occurs when he is outnumbered 4-1. Alba's tactical manual, Ordenanzas de Flandes, written in 1563, remains in use by the Spanish army until 1704. Prospero Colonna, victorious at Bicaca, commands tercio infantry until his death in 1523 at age 69. His tactical deployments are studied at Spanish military academies for 2 centuries. Spanish tercio soldiers serve 10-year enlistments. Many re-enlist. Veterans with 20 years service become company sergeants. Veterans with 30 years become tercio commanders. This creates institutional knowledge. French feudal armies disband after each campaign. Knowledge is lost. Spanish tercio infantry accumulates experience across decades. At Saint-Quentin in 1557, the Spanish tercio blocks include veterans who fought at Pavia in 1525, 32 years earlier. These men train younger soldiers. Tactics improve. Cohesion deepens. This prolongs wars but does not win them. At Saint-Quentin, French forces remain behind fortifications. The Spanish tercio blocks encircle and starve them. Montmorency attempts relief and is destroyed. Fortresses fall when their garrisons starve or when relief armies are defeated. The tercio dominates both scenarios. The hollow square, used at Pavia and Saint-Quentin, becomes standard anti-cavalry doctrine for 3 centuries. Napoleonic infantry squares at Waterloo in 1815 derive from tercio practice. The concept of combined arms, integrating pike and shot into a single tactical unit, is the tercio's core innovation. Modern infantry doctrine still integrates different weapon systems into cohesive units. The tercio is the template. Tercio battles are preserved in contemporary art. Titian's 1548 portrait of Charles V at Mühlberg hangs in the Prado, Madrid. The painting shows Charles in full armor on horseback, lance raised, the Elbe River visible in the background. Peter Snare's 1640 painting of the Battle of Saint-Quentin, commissioned by Philip IV, depicts Spanish tercio blocks in checkerboard formation, pike walls bristling, French cavalry trapped at the river. These paintings are not propaganda, they are battlefield records. Artists traveled with armies. Titian witnessed Mühlberg, Snares interviewed veterans, descriptions from Martire d'Anghiera's letters. At Pavia, the Parco Visconteo walls still stand. The breach points, blown open by Spanish engineers on February 23, 1525, are marked with plaques. Archaeologists recovered French cannonballs and Spanish musket balls from the battlefield in 1995. Lead isotope analysis traced the musket balls to Spanish mines in Almaden. At Saint-Quentin, the Somme River crossing is preserved as a historical site. The stone bridge, 12 feet wide, remains intact. Plaques mark Spanish tercio positions on the south bank. Montmorency's repeated captures, Pavia in 1525, Saint-Quentin in 1557, become French military folklore, a warning against underestimating Spanish infantry. Spanish tercio dominance shapes French military reform. By 1600, France abandons feudal levies and adopts professional standing armies trained in Dutch methods, into 3 blocks. The term enters military vocabulary across Europe. English adopts tercio, untranslated. German uses terz. Italian uses terzo. The tercio becomes synonymous with professional infantry dominance. When Swedish armies defeat Spanish tercio blocks in the 1630s, contemporary observers do not say the tercio is obsolete. They say the Swedes have created the new tercio. The concept endures even as the specific formation changes. Tercio battles define the 16th century. The Italian Wars, 1494 to 1559, end with Spanish control of Italy because French armies cannot defeat Spanish tercio infantry. The 80 Years' War, 1568 to 1648, lasts 8 decades because Dutch forces cannot break Spanish tercio dominance until new tactics mature. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, becomes a pan-European conflict because Spanish tercio infantry remains the benchmark every army must match. Europe's political geography in 1600, Spain dominant in Italy and Flanders, France confined to its historical borders, Germany fragmented, the Dutch independent, results directly from tercio battlefield success. Ineffective. By 1640, muskets fire twice as fast as tercio arquebuses. By 1650, musketeers outnumber pikemen 3-1 in most armies. By 1660, the Spanish army officially abandons tercio organization and adopts regimental structure based on Dutch models. The last tercio blocks disband in 1704 during the War of Spanish Succession, but for 80 years, from 1520 to 1600, the Spanish tercio is unmatched. 46,000 French dead, 3,000 Spanish dead. Casualty ratio, 15-1. At Bicocca, Spanish tercio infantry fights from prepared defenses. At Pavia, Landriano, Muhlberg, Marciano, and Saint-Quentin, they fight on open ground. The outcome is the same. Combined arms, standardized training, reliable logistics, adaptive command, and year-round professionalism produce consistent victory. The tercio does not win because Spanish soldiers are braver. It wins because Spanish soldiers are better trained, better equipped, better led, and better organized. System defeats courage. Doctrine defeats valor. The tercio proves it across 8 decades and 73 battles. Castile furnishes 1,200 men per tercio block annually, Aragon 600, Valencia 400, with recruitment cycles timed to campaigning seasons. Officers select men based on strict physical standards. Minimum height, 5 feet 6 inches measured against marked poles. Maximum age 35, verified through parish records. No missing limbs or vision impairment. Between 1520 and 1600, Spain recruits 260,000 tercio infantry from population base of 8 million. 43,000 die in battle across 73 major engagements. 78,000 die of disease, including typhus, dysentery, plague. The remainder complete service and return. Pike drill emphasizes formation cohesion. Advance in locked step, wheel 90 degrees, form defensive square in 30 seconds. Arquebus drill emphasizes fire discipline, load in 15 seconds, fire on command only. Pass rate, 78% overall. Soldiers carry 60 pounds, arquebus or pike, helmet, cuirass, ammunition, personal kit. Daily ration, 2 pounds of bread, 1 pound of meat, 1 quart of wine. Spanish tercio blocks arrive with 95% strength. French armies lose 20% to straggling. Promotion requires written recommendations from 2 tercio commanders verifying tactical competence. French captains are appointed by royal favor based on noble birth. At Pavia, French captains cannot execute basic maneuvers because they lack drill experience. Spanish captains execute complex movements without orders because they have trained the same maneuvers for years. Each tercio block includes 6 surgeons, 12 barber surgeons, 30 stretcher bearers. Surgeons treat wounds in field hospitals erected within hours of engagement. Survival rate for treated wounds, 42%. French armies lack organized medical support. At Bicocca, wounded French soldiers remain on the field for 2 days. Flag signals transmit orders across 500 yards. At Muhlberg, tercio blocks execute a 3-mile flank march using only flag signals. At Landriano, a block stands under artillery fire for 40 minutes. 13 men die. The formation holds. At Pavia, tercio infantry collects 18,000 French weapons. The armor yields 63 tons of iron, valued at 12,000 ducats. Each soldier receives 4 ducats prize money. In 1893, a farmer uncovers 1 pit containing 963 skeletons. A plaque notes they are French soldiers killed June 21st, 1529. Tercio tactical manuals become European standards. Diálogos Militares by Diego de Salazar, 1536, describes tercio formation. Ordenanzas de Flandes by the Duke of Alba, 1563, codifies battlefield tactics. By 1600, every European army studies Spanish doctrine. Maurice of Nassau's Dutch reforms modify tercio concepts, but retain combined arms. The tercio is not replaced. It is adapted. Between 1520 and 1600, Spain spends 180 million ducats on tercio wages, 48% of crown revenue. Potosi mines produce 8 million ducats annually by 1560. Silver shipments from the Americas increase from 2 million ducats in 1520 to 20 million in 1600. 70% funds military expenses. When silver production declines after 1640, Spain cannot afford tercio blocks. Spanish power recedes. The tercio becomes symbol of Spanish prowess. 17th century literature celebrates tercio soldiers. Lope de Vega's 1625 play dramatizes Spanish tercio infantry storming Maastricht. Francisco Franco names his Moroccan colonial infantry tercios to invoke prestige. Spanish military academies teach tercio battles as exemplars. Before 1500, European armies are feudal levies. The tercio introduces permanent institutions. By 1650, every major power maintains standing armies modeled on tercio principles. France creates the Régiment du Roi in 1558. England creates the new model army in 1645. The Tercio invents modern military organization. At Pavia, excavations in 2015 recover a mass grave containing 238 skeletons. All show pike wounds to the chest. At Marciano, surveys in 2008 locate the French supply train remains. Archaeologists recover charred wagon wheels, 364 silver coins dated 1553. At Mühlberg, divers recover Spanish pike heads, German swords, leather boot fragments. At Pavia, a stone obelisk marks where Francois I surrendered. Here, the King of France yielded to Spanish valor February 24, 1525. At Saint-Quentin, a bronze plaque reads, "On this bridge, French chivalry met Spanish infantry, August 10, 1557. The plaque was installed in 1957 by French veterans. The Spanish Tercio stood its ground and made the Frenchmen die." The ballad has 37 verses. La Ballade de Saint-Quentin mourns Montmorency's defeat. These songs transmit Tercio history for 5 centuries. French academies teach Tercio battles as cautionary examples. British and German academies adopt similar curricula by 1850. Tercio battles become universal case studies. These protections ensure battlefields remain intact. Forensic examination identified cause of death through systematic wound pattern analysis. 90% show musket ball wounds to the torso with rib penetration. 8% show pike wounds to the chest and abdomen, consistent with 18-foot pike thrust from elevated position. 2% show blunt force trauma to skull, consistent with halberd strikes delivered from above. The skeletons were buried together in a single pit, measuring 30 feet by 50 feet. Excavated 3 days after battle based on soil stratification and decomposition patterns. Soil core samples extracted from multiple depths show the pit was dug through ground saturated with blood, penetrating 18 inches deep into subsoil layers, indicating massive hemorrhaging concentrated in confined space. The remains are definitively French, based on dental wear patterns typical of French diet, clothing fragment analysis showing French military weave patterns, and button types stamped with fleur-de-lis markings recovered from uniform remnants. The grave location and casualty count precisely match Montmorency's recorded losses, documented in Spanish Tercio battle reports filed with Madrid 30 days after engagement. 412 men, French infantry and gendarmes, trapped between Spanish Tercio pike walls and the river, systematically killed in 3 hours of coordinated Tercio operations. Cold, steel, water.